Petito joined Armin and Goldie's channel yesterday, and I thought he actually delivered some new information, and I wanted to discuss what was the new information. I can point out a few things that he said. If you didn't see it, I from part of his prepared statement, he said, "We are approaching a decisive window. My best assessment of the situation is that we need coordinated regional calls to action in cities that have the highest potential to break free. But the people cannot do this with empty hands. We need the international community to provide real strategic support to help neutralize the regime's ability to rush reinforcements into those areas. If we secure and hold even a few liberated zones, the momentum will become unstoppable and the news will spread like wildfire. City after city will rise, and the regime's center of powers in Tehran, Qom, and Mashhad will fall one by one. This is not wishful thinking, it is a reality of I am witnessing from inside Iran." And then in his impromptu interview, he seemed to indicate that the prohibition on anti regime and even pro Pahlavi political discussion is gone. And he also, I think, indicated that people attending the pro regime rallies are facing a lot of social ostracism. And so I'm wondering if we can come from what he said, and are we seeing big indications of a sort of incentive reversal where it's becoming harder and harder to survive as a regime supporter, that you're forced to even have discussions about open discussions about Pahlavi inside of Iran? So that's my question.
There's no way for the regime to stop people talking about Pahlavi. Like, even when I was back in Iran, like 20, 25 years ago, when I went into the taxi, we would be talking anti-regime with the taxi driver like all the time. Like, whenever in school we speak against the regime, in our social gatherings we speak against the regime. We wouldn't be talking about Pahlavi because he wasn't as popular back then that he is right now, but it's just very difficult for the regime to control the conversation, right? Sometimes when somebody makes a post or somebody likes something, they try to make an example out of them by just targeting on them and then executing them or torturing them or threatening them. But the conversation still continues. And the Pahlavi, like, people talking about Pahlavi, he's the biggest deal right now in Iranian politics. So of course in Iran, I would assume that people would be talking about Pahlavi all the time, and people openly supporting him or openly criticizing him. Like, I'm assuming there's a lot of debates going on in Iran right now over this issue. I don't think there's. It's not the Islamic Republic is allowing it. It's more like the Islamic Republic is doesn't have the ability to stop it. This is why they cut the internet. If the Islamic Republic could go and find these people and arrest every single one of them, or execute them, or torture them, or imprison them, then why cut down the internet? It's like they cut that down. They cut the internet because there's so much of the conversation out on the internet is not what they want. That's why they cut it. With regards to the ostracization of the pro regime people, this is another thing that was there for a very long time. But now these people are experiencing it more because they're experiencing it right after the greatest massacre by the regime. And also because there's so many of them right mixed with the rest of us, right? Because when I was back in Iran, like more than 20 years ago, there's like we have our places and they have our places. Like, we don't get mixed that often. So, for example, in Iran, when I go to school, I got exposed to pro regime stuff. When you turn on the TV, you get exposed to pro regime stuff. But other than that, you try to not get exposed to that shit. Like, you try to live your life without getting exposed to all of that. So, these pro regime people having street protests in the streets, in the squares every single night for the past 2 months is like really annoying to people. And that's why they're attacking them even more than before. But just to give you an understanding of how common and normal and how old this is, when I was in Iran, and I think this is like around 25 years ago, 25 years ago, I think, right? Between 20 to 25 years ago. My mom came one day, told me that she just came from the bank, and she said that the bank staff were not serving this woman, were not like listening to her because she was chadori, right? Because she was wearing the full chador. Like this is like upper Tehran, like around the Shimron area, like when the it's like a little bit upper higher level. And this chadori woman came to the bank, and she was asking for help, and people were acting like they can hear her. They couldn't hear her, and my mom like grabbed her hand and went to the bank teller and like, "Can you help her? She's asking for help." And she was like, "Fine." And they helped her, and she thanked my mom and left. And my mom asked her, "Why weren't you helping her?" And they all were like, "These people ruined our country. Fuck them. Like these motherfuckers. Like we didn't want to help them." And this was like more than 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago. You can imagine how it is right now, right? Does that even? I don't know if that's answering your question.
Yeah, and that's I think it's interesting that so it seems like in if you compare it to North Korea, that there's these really extreme taboos on any kind of dissent, right? And it sounds like that is not really the source of power in Iran. Is that a correct assessment?
Sorry, say that again. I was distracted by Amy's message in the chat. But say that again.
So the question is how in a place like North Korea, a big part of the power of the regime is basically complete silencing of dissent. So
Right.
you can figure out who your enemies are just because they're going to speak even mildly bad thing about Kim Jong Un. And it sounds like in Iran, it's almost the opposite, where the power of the regime is almost entirely just based on military suppression.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the Iranian people always say that the dream of the Islamic Republic is to create a North Korea type situation. It's their dream because they have never gotten to get close to that situation. For example, if you look at the videos coming from the street protests, a lot of these interviews are like when they go and talk to the regime supporters and they talk to them, or like when they say, "Yeah, I support our leader," and they always ask, "Isn't it hard? Don't you get attacked by your friends and your family?" So, what are they saying? Like they're saying like it's hard to support the supreme leader because you get attacked by your friends and family. Look at us, it's such a hard thing to do, to stand on the right side of history, to support the regime, to support the leaders, because we constantly get attacked by society. So they're admitting that everybody hates them, and the fact that they're admitting that they get openly insulted all the time, but like their own interviews show that, right? So that is not at all like North Korea. In North Korea, if somebody said, "I love the supreme leader," and somebody said, "Fuck you," that person would probably die. Like that person. So this shows that the Islamic Republic hasn't been able to maintain that level of control.
I am the response list. Would you clarify just a minute ago? I don't remember your exact words, but you said something about people are getting annoyed with the pro regime protesters in the streets. You said something that felt like it alluded to that they're being attacked in some way. Did I
Oh,
understand that?
he indicated in this interview with actually, I think exactly what he said was he has friends who are annoyed with the pro regime rallies that are happening, we think, every night. And so he suggested that they go to one of the rallies and see what the rally goers undergo, and that would indicate to their to his friends that the rallies are actually not helping because those people are ostracized. I don't know, it's like being yelled at in the streets, insulted, yelled at in the streets. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that was news to me, but it's apparently it's not. Yeah.
So I haven't experienced a Patip Minsha, but this is what I could tell you. The messages I'm getting from inside Iran, BT, is that this is really getting under nerves. Like this is like whatever the rage was or whatever the level of anger of the Iranian people were, them having to go into the streets to be able to go to work or to buy something, and having to go through these people, and these people supporting the very regime that just recently massacred the Iranian people, and having to watch their jihadi songs and narratives and them waving their flags, is really annoying them. It's like the Iranian people can't stand it. And a lot of people, what a lot of non-Iranians have to understand is that we don't, like, when you live in Iran, you don't have to get, you find ways not to get exposed to this. You know what I mean? A lot of people think, oh, because you're Iranian, if you lived inside Iran, that means like you were under jihadi bombardment all the goddamn time, right? But if you're a teenager that is not into that stuff, you could actually live a life that is, because that is so uncool. It's so you know what I mean? It's like what you, that's what you suffer through when you go to school. Not even in school, like only during, okay, even when you go to school, it's only at the when you're in line waiting to go to school, they read the Quran to you, and then a Quran class and religion class. Okay, but you're not even exposed to it during math class, during literature class, during so many other classes. So it's like minimum exposure, and you don't even turn on the TV because the TV, who watches TV when you have the internet, right? So if you turn on the TV, there's a lot of like Islamic stuff, but who, like, which teenager watches TV? So you could actually create a life for you that is very much like a Western, like you're gaming, you're on social media, you're watching TikTok. Maybe 3 times a day you hear the azan, okay, if you're in the wrong place. And also maybe during Ashura, there's going to be more of this religious nonsense in your neighborhood, right? But you could get away with not getting exposed to it, and most teenagers consider that stuff to be like really uncool, lame stuff that you don't want in your life, right? So that's your upbringing, and now these people just committed the greatest massacre in your history upon your people, and now you're seeing them every fucking day in the main city squares, and they're celebrating the regime that just caused this darkest chapter of our history. So I don't like, I don't know how to explain how infuriating that is to the, like, a lot of people want to, like, they're seeing, they want to see rivers of blood in the like from those. They're asking Israel to just bomb these people. They're like, why is Israel not just bombing the civilians? Again, I'm not like, I'm not endorsing that, by the way. But they ask, they, this is what they ask us. They're like, why is Israel not just carpet bombing these protests? That's what they ask. That's one of their main questions.
Not inciting any violence or suggesting it because we condone violence. Are those pro
We don't.
regime protesters being guarded by IRGC or anyone else? What would happen if Iranian citizens got so tired of it that they went down there and did something about it? What would be that backlash? Would Basijis or whoever else just start firing into the crowd to get rid of everyone? What would actually happen if they started attacking those groups?
That's a very good question, and based on what I'm saying, the crowds are very unprotected right now, and actually, it's the crowd that is supposed to be protecting IRGC right now, rather than the other way around. The whole point of the crowds outside is that we don't have enough forces to stop an uprising, so we're just bringing the pro-regime civilians into the streets to stop an uprising because we cannot stop it ourselves. So the crowd is protecting the IRGC rather than the IRGC protecting the crowd. And I don't think the best, like, I don't, they're not going to shoot into the crowds of pro regime people because that would be devastating for them. They're going to lose so much support if they do that. If But I, my suspicion, and again, anything could happen, is that they would try to capitalize on that by saying, look at what these are, terrorists, look, these secular, democratic, freedom loving, they're coming, like, oh, look, there were children there, there were women and children there, they're shooting into the crowds. Is this the freedom that you want? Is this what Pahlavi stands for? Is this what pro-democracy means? So they will try to capitalize on that for their own narrative as a PR win if that happens.
But have you not looked at Israel before and said they're going to blame you anyway? They're going to lie about you anyway. You might as well get shit done.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're not suggesting that anybody should do that. Okay, so
Oh,
we're
not at all.
yeah,
Just
I know, I know. I'm saying it for, I'm not saying I'm saying it for YouTube reasons because this is going to go on YouTube. Yeah, okay, I just
right.
want to make sure the algorithm doesn't get confused here. But
I'm
yeah,
only
but
the PR
yeah,
mentality of that they'll spin it.
yeah,
You know,
I
that's
wouldn't.
a lot in with Israel fighting back is this PR thing.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if some anti-regime people at some point, I'm not saying if they will or not, but if it happens, we will not be surprised. If at some point you see somebody driving by and doing something crazy to these people, I wouldn't be shocked. However, I do think that the more likely types of the military type of response, like armed response that we're going to see, is going to be towards IRGC and Basiji specifically, right? Because here's the thing, if you went out of the way to get access to weapons, right? Why shoot into crowds of people where you could go find a checkpoint or an IRGC or a place where some soldiers are standing and just do basically shoot at them instead? Like, why not do that? That would be like, you already have done the very difficult thing of figuring out how to get your hands on some weapons and try to come up with a plan to shoot at people. So why not do that instead? That would be a lot more effective. And it's not like the checkpoints are very well protected anyways, right? So that would that might be the calculation that prevents somebody from going out and doing something like that. Also, because I'm pretty sure some people are so angry that they would want to do the crazy things to the crowds of people, but I still think that the vast majority of the anti-regime Iranian people see this as a wrong thing to do. So we do see some people are saying, fuck all of these people, they're already with the regime, so they deserve to die. But my suspicion is that even if some people say it, when it comes to actually taking action, they think, you know what, let's just focus on the armed forces of the regime when it comes to actually taking action.